immigrants despising the country they live in. How many immigrants despise the country they live in?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a very large percentage for it to cause huge problems, as we learned in 2005.
What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are feeling good. My name is Elaru, and today I'm back on the video check out with you guys. It's called That's Rubbish. Douglas Murray confronts Muslim scholar with uncomfortable fact. It's gonna be tough and heated, so just sit back, relax, put on your headphones, and let's dig right into it. In how it goes, we talk less and we react more.
They were not enforced marriages.
I have to let Douglas Murray have a final word on this.
This is the tragedy, is that there are people in this country who do not feel loyalty to this country, who do not feel they have to have any loyalty to this
political
country.
differences,
And we saw there one of the end points that can reach.
You are about to see an epic debate that happened on a BBC show a few years ago. In this debate, Douglas Murray takes on a Muslim thinker and gives him a lesson or two. The debate was around multiculturalism and its failure in the West. Douglas Murray did not hold back.
That is an accusation levelled at many of those who argue from your standpoint that you paint with far too broad a brush. For example, you talk about immigrants despising the country they live in. How many immigrants despise the country they live in?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a very large percentage for it to cause huge problems, as we learned in 2005, to our great cost. First of all, I don't agree that
They weren't immigrants.
No. I'm saying people who come to this country and who are then taught and acquire a sense of hatred towards this country. First, I mean, what we're seeing in Britain is a form of reverse assimilation. People are less integrated this generation than their parents and grandparents because there is less desire to actually get involved in the country they're in. And another thing, this isn't a straw man argument about the forced marriage issue because, yes, it's true the FCO has now got a forced marriage unit. It was very late in coming. And the phenomenon of girls of Asian background being married off had been going on for decades until government got involved.
No one's denying that, but it wasn't going on because of multiculturalism.
I don't want to get hung up on forced marriages because we could talk about it. We're talking about the broader aspect of multiculturalism.
Douglas is just wrong to say that a younger generation is not as integrated.
But you can't have it both ways because on the one hand you have said yourself that it alienates particularly the British Muslim community when people paint in the brushstrokes that Douglas is using. So you talk about the alienation, yet when he talks about the alienation, you say it's not true.
That's apples and oranges is different. I mean, I'm talking about alienation that we're creating right now. I'm not talking about the last 40 years of which Douglas is basically indicting 40 years of integration
but where
of
are
immigrants.
Where are we now, do you think? Where are we now?
Well, let me just take one poll to bring some facts into the debate. In 2009, Gallup did extensive polling of Muslim communities across Europe. They found that British Muslims were more likely to identify with Britain than non-Muslim Britain, 77% to 50%. They found that British Muslims were more keen on living in mixed areas than segregated areas than non-Muslim Britain, 68% to 57%. So I don't buy this caricature from the right, which says all young Muslims are out to blow stuff up and don't like living here.
And it was
not
very
me,
interesting.
not anyone I know, none of my friends.
Andrew raised a very interesting point. I mean, you were describing the bombers as immigrants. At what point do people cease to be immigrants in this country and become, in your mind, nationals or British or part of the landscape?
As a friend of mine who immigrated here himself says, the point where you become British is the period where you realise you don't get any extra rights than anyone else, any extra sensitivities than anyone else, any extra inducements than anyone else.
You get respect for your culture, Douglas.
All you get is to put up with the same crap the rest of us get to put up with. That's the deal. No extra things. And the thing is that at the moment, the dominant narrative of British life has become lost. And this is what I was trying to say in the film, is that everyone can, as it were, argue their rights, their background, their culture, other than British rights, British culture, British norms. I think it makes it a lot easier to integrate people if you know what you're integrating.
Multiculturalism has long been a cornerstone of liberal policies in the West, intended to entice diverse cultural identities. Critics, however, argue it now undermines social cohesion and national identity. Douglas Murray brings this issue to light. Douglas Murray argues that multicultural policies might promote segregation rather than integration. This point is crucial in understanding the long-term societal impacts of these policies. The idea here is not just about physical segregation, but also about the segmentation of values, norms, and civic responsibilities, which are foundational to a cohesive society. Research supports this perspective. For instance, A study by the Urban Institute in the United States found that areas with high levels of cultural diversity coupled with strong multicultural policies tend to have more segregated ethnic communities. These areas often experience what is termed parallel lives, where different ethnic groups live side by side, but not together, leading to a mosaic of many cultures rather than a melting pot. Another dimension comes from the work of sociologist Robert Putnam, who found that in the short term, greater diversity in a community can lead to lower social capital and trust among residents. His research in diverse American neighborhoods showed that higher diversity correlates with lower trust not only between ethnic groups, but also within them. This indicates that without a strong, unifying national culture, the fabric of society could become frayed, leading to less social cohesion and community cooperation. Murray uses these kinds of insights to argue that while diversity itself is a strength, the policies that govern it must be crafted to promote integration and a shared commitment to the values that define the host culture. His critique is a call to refine multicultural policies to ensure they foster not only respect for diversity, but also reinforce the importance of integration and shared societal norms.
There's a difference between British culture and kind of minority rights. They're not.
No.
It's all one and the same
But
thing.
maybe-
We come
maybe-
together.
But sometimes they run very much
culture
I know
evolves.
you two
Britishness
tend
evolves.
to joust frequently, but I'm very keen to just unpick some of this. At the last election, even the Labour Party held up their hands and they said, you know what, we made white working class people feel alienated. We drove them, we herded them into the hands of extremists.
Well, as we know, the Labour Party can be wrong on a lot of things.
So they were wrong about that?
Well, one of the people who was saying that, of course, was then disqualified from his seat for race baiting in Oldham. So I'm not going to take lessons from Phil Willis on what integration looks like. But just on the specific
forget
one
the
of
message.
terrorism.
The message. I want to know about the message. You think that message was wrong?
I think there is an issue with working class communities, white working class communities, insecurity. I think that's an economic issue. To pretend it's about language or forced marriages or these issues is rubbish.
It's about,
and
it's
I've
about
got to
your
address this
culture.
terrorism point.
It's
Sorry, the
about your
7/7
culture.
bombers.
Very
Very
running out
briefly,
of
you've had a
time.
long film. The 7/7 bombers, let me just make a very specific point, could speak English, married of their own accord, played cricket. They were not in forced
All right.
marriages or
I have to
This
let
is
Douglas
just
Murray
not-
have a final word on this.
This is
go
the
on.
the first word as well.
the tragedy, is that there are people in this country who do not feel loyalty to this country, who do not feel they have to have any loyalty to
There's
this country.
political differences, not cultural
And we
differences,
saw there
Douglas.
one of the end points that
All
can
right,
reach.
Douglas Murray challenges the efficacy of multicultural policies and the sometimes hesitant approach of the state in enforcing laws uniformly across different cultural groups. Mehdi Hassan counters this by highlighting the establishment of specialized units, such as the Forced Marriage Unit in the UK, arguing that these efforts signify active governmental intervention against cultural abuses. However, Murray's critique goes deeper, questioning whether these measures are merely reactive rather than preventive and whether they truly address the root causes of the issues they aim to solve. Murray's skepticism about the effectiveness of such units in combating cultural abuses is grounded in a broader critique of multiculturalism. He argues that by the time such units are established and operational, significant damage has already been done, and many victims have already suffered due to initial inaction. This point raises concerns about the proactive capabilities of multicultural policies in preventing cultural abuses before they occur, rather than merely responding to them after the fact. Furthermore, Murray's argument is supported by studies and reports that suggest a pattern of delayed response in multicultural policy frameworks. For example, a report by The Independent suggests that authorities in various regions have been slow to respond to issues like female genital mutilation, FGM, and forced marriages within immigrant communities due to fears of being labeled culturally insensitive. These fears can lead to a hesitancy to intervene, which, as Murray points out, results in a lack of equality before the law. Prominent figures such as Aya and Hirsi Ali have echoed Murray's concerns by highlighting the paradox within some liberal, multicultural approaches. Hirsi Ali argues that in an effort to respect cultural diversity, there has often been a failure to uphold the fundamental rights of individuals within those cultures, particularly women and girls.
Another issue that, well, I say, plagues the whole world: multiculturalism, especially in Britain. See, as Douglas pointed out, the thing is, there will always be an uneasy calm in that country, waiting for the next one to strike. And though they may seem relatively peaceful, it's not all roses in there. But the thing is, how can one be so sure that most of the violence in the country is from the immigrant? I mean, maybe yes, they contribute to it, but then I believe immigrants or not, there's still going to be violence in a country or a state because humans are humans. That's just it. There's bound to be strife or quarrel one place or the other. And the truth is, in a community where there are diverse cultures and different ethnicities, will I say one or more is always bound to be favored more than the others, and the rest will always feel cheated. And that is not a road leading to peace, I can tell you. And basically, this is a Western community. Douglas is saying immigrants from other walks of life, other parts of the world that have their own values pouring in. Sooner or later, they'll want these values to be upheld in the place they are living in. They won't really want to follow the laws or the rules of the country they have come to meet. They'll want theirs to be imputed in it. And with time, because humans are humans, I keep saying that, they'll want these values to overshadow the values of the country that they met. And this is what Douglas is trying to prevent. Because believe it or not, they are extremists in every walk of life, be it religious extremists or whatever. They are extremists for every reason in every walk of life. There must always be a particular group of persons that want to push that idea more forward than the others. And they will go to extreme measures to prove it. So this is basically what Douglas is trying to say. Now, there are some learned ones among them who won't really go all out with the extremism. But that doesn't mean that they won't want their values to be integrated into it too. This doesn't mean that they won't be happy to see their values merged with the country they are now settled in. And as Douglas always keeps saying, it's going to start small, very insignificant, before it starts to overshadow everybody, because people would still want to take it extreme. That's the point he's trying to make. The extremism is what he's against. The extremism is what he's fighting against. And he wants to take it at the point where it's still not small, but a bit minimal from what he has envisioned or seen that is bound to come. And basically, I believe nationalism, I don't know if this also applies in Britain, but you become a national after 15 years in that country. Then you still see some of them would want their cultures to be imputed into the legal system of that country. And as Douglas pointed out, by then the government would not really want to say no for fear of being called intolerant and all that. He also said that these places that are densely populated by these immigrants, when practicing their culture within them, if it conflicts with the Western values, then the government might not necessarily want to take action, because the government doesn't want to be called intolerant to their beliefs and their practices. So, all in all, the truth is, multiculturalism will always be a disputed theory, because practically it's possible. but it's not all beds and roses. I mean, if you want to go into it, as Douglas said, if you want to diversify, you have to make sure that the integration is there. You've got to imbibe the values of the country they are now living in into them if they want to remain. And in theory, that actually makes sense, because you can't come to another man's land and start trying to be the boss. You have to play by their rules. You have to follow their cards. And if it doesn't go down well with you, then you're free to leave. I believe things should be done that way, because it will minimize a lot of damage that this particular context is causing. Please leave your comments in the comment section and leave a thumbs up at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.